Game prediction, New Orleans Saints versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a couple of hours before kickoff. I mean, we are in the nitty-gritty. Okay, this video will be going out about 2 hours before kickoff, but it is Sunday morning. I was doing my last-minute prep. My Sundays are insane. I mean, I prep for 12, 14 hours straight of the NFL, getting ready to go to the game. You can hear the sirens popping off. The city has absolutely lost its mind. Even on a Sunday morning, I got an email from my man Jason. Said, brother, you got to watch this. You got to watch this right here. So I stopped what I was doing. I'm coming in here. I'm watching it. Got the headset ready to roll. All right, the backdrop. Straight from Don Juan's Cigar Bar, apparently. This is Matt Moscona and Ryan Theriot, I believe, the Riot. I think that's former Chicago Cub Ryan Theriot. So they are going to talk about Eagles Saints. We've talked exclusively about Eagles Saints. We have really broke this game down well this week. The coverage has been insane. I hope if you've been watching the coverage this week, you feel prepared for the kickoff and for the game and what you're going to see. Let's hear what they have to say.
Saints are going to host the Eagles Sunday in the Dome. Injury reports out Friday. A.J. Brown, the great wide receiver for the Eagles, not going to play in the ball game. He's out.
Yep, there's no surprise there. A.J. Brown said during the Atlanta game that it'd be a couple of weeks until he was back. Taysom Hill, bit of a surprise. He was downgraded to doubtful with a chest injury. So that's a big deal. I mean, Kubiak uses Taysom Hill a lot, obviously. We'll see what Kubiak can draw up. If there's anybody who can figure it out on the fly, it's King Clint.
Out, injury. C.J. Gardner-Johnson was added to the injury report, but did go on Friday. He's going to be able to play. Taysom Hill, questionable. Everybody else for the Saints looks like they're going to be able to go. Everybody of significance is going to be able to go, which is really good news. Marshawn Lattimore should be back this week as well. I think one of the things that will be really interesting to me is going to be this idea of the resurgent dome field advantage, which during the Peyton Breeze era, teams just didn't win in New Orleans. It was for a while the best home field venue in the NFL.
Agreed.
Especially in primetime. The Saints never lost in primetime in the Dome. And that's been more of a 50-50 proposition the past few years, certainly since Sean Payton's been gone. You've missed the playoff 3 straight times, 3 straight years, and the vibes around the franchise haven't been good. I mean, this entire offseason, we all, my hands in the air, I'm not excusing myself, we all talked about how this would be it for Dennis Allen. It was an inevitability. How do you get out of the Derek Carr contract? Well, 2 games is all it's taken to make everybody perk up and think this team has real contender potential, because it's not just that you're 2-0, but the manner in which you've gotten to 2-0. You didn't just beat Carolina, who's the doormat in the NFL, but they're still a professional football team. I mean, you beat them 47-10. You don't hang half 100 on people in the NFL. And a lot of people hand-waved it because it was Carolina, and I can understand having a healthy degree of skepticism, but then you go on the road to Dallas, where they hadn't lost in 2 years. They won their last 16 home games.
Well, besides the playoffs.
And you blow the doors off of them. I mean, the offense has had the ball 15 times this year. They have scored all 15 possessions. Like, that doesn't happen in the NFL. It's an incredible way. It's not just that they're 2-0, it's how they've gotten to 2-0.
Remember, if Dennis Allen wins, if the Saints win against Philadelphia, Dennis Allen will be a game over 500 as head coach of the New Orleans Saints, which I think that alone is like kind of like a surprise to people. Because people here, like Matthias just said, it's an inevitability that Dennis Allen was getting fired. He's the worst coach in the NFL, blah, 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 blah. And then you see, like, wow, actually, I mean, as a head coach of the Saints, he's been pretty whatever. You know, like 500 is whatever. Even coming into the season being 2 games under 500, then you go down to Jacksonville and look at Trevor Lawrence, who's 10 games under 500 and got a $300 million contract, but I digress. What this is, ladies and gentlemen, is, let me do a little thesis here for you. The teams are not just the logo. Like, it's not just the Saints are the Saints every single year. It doesn't matter who's there. You know what you're going to get with the Saints. You know what they're going to be like because they are the Saints. As long as they are in the same uniforms, as long as they're in the same stadium, they are that team. The Eagles, you know what you're going to get. The Patriots, you know what you're going to get. That's not the case. With how systematic the NFL is now, where a coordinator, both offensively and defensively, look at Minnesota. Okay, Brian Flores by himself rolled up into Minnesota and completely changed that defense. So the year before Flores got there, you can't just say like, oh, well, Minnesota always has a bad defense, so they're going to have a bad defense, and then carry that over when Flores gets there. Coordinators are impacting teams more than ever. I mean, we see it with the Saints, right? Kubi, like to transfer anything from last year to this year just because the uniform is the same and the dome is the same and the team is the same. The coordinator in the system is such a big deal. Philadelphia, very similar, where Shane Steichen leaves. Jalen Hurts is an MVP candidate. Probably should have won the MVP. They go to the Super Bowl. Steichen and Gannon leave, and everyone just assumes that Philadelphia will just be Philadelphia. That is not the case. With coordinators and the power that they have, that's not the case. And the Saints are a great example of this 2-0 has to be taken seriously because it is a brand new spanking team. And if you look at how they were last year to how they are now, it's completely different. We have 2 data points now to prove that. And so any kind of preconceived notion you have of how the Saints were going to play, you can go ahead and throw out.
That is most impressive. Now, I look at this matchup in particular. So I am, to finish that point, I am interested in the home field advantage, the dome field advantage, because the crowd, the fan base, everybody is energized.
Yes.
And when you go in that building and it's at full throat and it's a fever pitch, it's like walking into the middle of a bass drum because it's indoors, man. The sound can't escape. It is hell to be in that place whenever it's loud for an opponent.
Real deal. Yeah.
And it's going to be like that Sunday with Philly coming in. You could probably speak to this as well. I'm a big believer, I've always been a big believer in, as I say it, not just who you play, but when and where you play them.
Yeah, for sure.
So Philly.
Scheduling matters. And Philly's coming on a short week. Had a brutal loss against Atlanta. Short week, no A.J. Brown. Great time to play.
Just played on Monday Night Football. They lost a home game to Atlanta, a game they had no business losing. They gagged it away at the end.
Yeah,
they let Atlanta get a stop, go right down the field at the end, and score the game-winning touchdown as time was running out. So they've got to be disappointed. But it's tough in the NFL to play on a short week, especially when you have to travel.
Oh, yeah.
It's why the home team generally does so well on Thursday Night Football. I mean, the Jets last night blew out New England. It was never
New England sucks.
Competitive. It wasn't just because it was a short week, and that's a close. New York.
It's also Gerard Mayo, the Patriots rookie head coach, his first time playing on Thursday Night Football or coaching on Thursday Night Football. That is notoriously difficult for a first-time head coach to deal with. First-time head coaches have trouble dealing with travel, like going to London, for example, going across country. They have a hard time on short weeks. They have a hard time with stuff like that. So there was a lot of factors in that game.
New York and Boston are close together, but short week and you have to travel. It just compresses everything. It makes the degree of difficulty even greater in the NFL. So I think it's a tough spot for Philly, even though they let one get away last week at home. I think the spot is tough, like going on the road on a short week, right? Rehab, recovery in a short week.
You're taking 2 days. 2 days away. The travel day to me is counted as that's a day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not so much the travel, because today, like, airplanes and travel is not bad at all, right? What's bad is you take the day away. So you take away the day of watching film, rehabbing, just being at the facilities. All of a sudden now you have to be traveling. You have to, just the logistics of it is the bad part. The actual travel, these guys are flying, first class. Like they're not on JetBlue.
And traveling, getting on the plane, you get dehydrated, just changes things up. So yeah, just because they're not practicing or playing on that travel day doesn't mean that it's not taxing on the body. So you're 100% correct. Going into a stadium, I talk about the situation all the time in LA, for instance. You go play the Dodgers in the middle of the season, and it's the easiest place to play in Major League Baseball. The fans don't show up till the 3rd inning, and they leave in the 7th inning. Nobody cheers. They don't even know what's going on. And it's beautiful weather, and it's perfect, and it's LA. It's great. You go play there in the playoffs, and they're throwing batteries at you and ice and the thing. They have to police escort your families out of the place. So yeah, I mean, a facility like the Dome, the home field advantage it is real. That is a real thing. When you see coaches pleading and asking for fans to come, I mean, the one that does it the best is here in town, and Coach Kim Mulkey. I mean, she everywhere she goes, she's always talking because she understands the advantage that gives, and the Dome provides an opportunity and an atmosphere for that.
I think it's well said. I think the Saints are obviously going to have a huge home field advantage in this game. There's a couple of things about this game that I think I look at matchup-wise that I'm curious. So
yeah, it's pretty simple matchup. Like, Philadelphia is going to want to run Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. Can we stop them? Can we stop Jalen Hurts? He's ran 13 times in both games. So that'll be the first thing the Saints defense has to do. Second thing, our second matchup, is Philly has the worst run defense in the league DVOA-wise. Can the Saints take advantage of that because they want to run? So can Alvin Kamara take advantage of what has been a weak Philly run defense? And if Kubiak and Kamara can take advantage of the running game, then the Saints offense should do exactly what it wants to do because it's completely built off of the run game. So if we see success running the football, then we should be fine.
So offensively, I think the Saints are going to be fine.
Yeah.
The Eagles' defense, they have invested so much into this defense. From Jalen Carter going 9.
Yeah, but it was bad last year, and so far it's been bad this year.
And overall, Nolan Smith was a first-rounder, Nakobe Dean, Jordan Davis. They've invested so much draft capital into this defense. And they have been one of the worst defenses so far through 2 games this year. I think the Saints offense, I don't look at this as what we thought Philly was going to be. I'm looking at this as what I have seen from Philly through 2 weeks. I don't think they're going to stop the Saints offense. Now, I'm not telling you the Saints are going to go score 40 again. But
I think the Saints will have what they want. And I agree. And I don't think anybody thought Philly's defense was going to be great because Philly's defense was the problem last year. And we saw what Tampa Bay did to them and every other team did to them at the end of the year. They go get Vic Fangio. From what I hear, word on the street is that Fangio struggles with Shanahan-style offenses, which is good for us as well. Fangio's defenses are notoriously complex, very difficult to learn at the beginning of the year. His defenses usually get better as the year goes on. So getting them in week 3 is also a big benefit for the Saints.
But the Saints are going to move the ball and score. I don't think this is one of those, you come back down to reality because you step up in competition. Philly and Vic Fangio, they have issues defensively. Giving up a game-winning touchdown the way they did to Atlanta was inexcusable. And
not only that, but you saw them get absolutely zero pressure on Kirk Cousins the entire game. So they can't pressure the quarterback. They can't stop the run. They can't really do much of anything. And as far as Philly's offense, I think Philly will be fine offensively once A.J. Brown gets back and all of that. But I didn't see anything against Atlanta that would make me think damn, this is a really good offense we're about to face. Dallas is way better offensively than Philly right now. So the fact that the Saints did what they did defensively against Dallas, the Saints defense is better than Atlanta's defense. So I think both sides of the ball, we match up really well with Philly. We're catching them at a great time, catching them on a good scheduling spot. I mean, I've said 31-20 was my final score. I think the Saints. I think the Saints take this down easily.
Of course, they also had to play Green Bay in week 1 down in Brazil and gave up 34 in that game. I think Philly defensively has problems, and the Saints are going to be able to take advantage of it. So that's number 1.
Yeah, for sure.
The other side of the ball, though, is where I have this is my real cause for concern. The Saints under Dennis Allen struggle with mobile quarterbacks. That is a fact. This is a thing that we have talked about for as long as Dennis Allen has been there. And Dennis Allen is a great defensive coordinator. For whatever
Okay, so let's do a game script thing because this is important. When you bring up something like this, you have to then the next step is okay, how does it actually impact the game? So the Saints have trouble with mobile quarterbacks. Does that mean that we are concerned about Jalen Hurts' designed runs, or are we concerned about Jalen Hurts' improv scrambling around? Also, if the Saints are getting whatever they want offensively and we're leading and we're dictating the game, I could care less if Jalen Hurts is running around. Like, cool, eat up clock, chew clock, let him have his 4, 5, 6 yard runs, and then the game's over. Like, at some point when you are losing, you have to throw the football and you have to push the ball downfield if you're the Eagles. And I have a feeling the Eagles will be losing quick. Like, they'll be down. I'd be surprised if the Saints are playing from behind in this game. So at that point, like, this whole idea of like the Saints being bad against mobile quarterbacks, I mean, if we're up 17-0, 17-3 early on, and Jalen Hurts is just kind of scrambling here and there and extending the plays on his leg, like, I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to have 30 carries for 190 yards. Like, what is the worst case scenario with him scrambling around? I mean, he's going to extend some plays and whatnot, and sure, but as long as the Saints are playing from ahead, that's not that bad.
I have thought and said about him as a head coach, which I think is completely legitimate. As a defensive coordinator, he's undeniable. The Saints organization turned when they got rid of Rob Ryan and brought Dennis Allen back. Yeah. Undeniable. He's a great defensive coordinator. They have not figured this out, mobile quarterbacks. And twice,
I think what Allen does, I think Allen plays a lot of man on the outside. I think Allen says, you know what, I'm gonna cover all my bases, and if the quarterback running around beats me, then okay. And most of the time, especially 5-10 years ago, most of the time, like, that doesn't matter, right? Like, the Phillip Rivers of the world, the Peyton Mannings of the world, the Tom Brady's of the world, like, whatever. Don't worry about them running. Now the game is a little different to where every quarterback can run. But again, if you keep them kind of contained, like, they can run. You just can't give up these like 60, 70-yard runs to them, or you can't allow them to hit big chunk plays with on the ground. So as long as Hurts is contained to a certain extent, I'm not really that concerned about him running.
They've faced Jalen Hurts. They faced him in 2020 and 2021. The game in 2020 in Philly, the Saints lost 24-21. And then in 2021, when they played in Philly, they lost 40-29. In both instances, Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders went off. In 2 games, Hurts has 175 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns in his 2 starts against New Orleans. The Saints went there 2 years ago and won. Gardner Minshew was in for an injured Jalen Hurts, and the Saints won that game 20-10. This is where I go, okay, we have legit questions about the Saints' run defense. They were 27th in the NFL last year. They were not.
You'd have to look quickly. You'd have to look at the game script again. If Jalen Hurts is playing with a lead, not what you want. Like, you absolutely don't want him to be playing with a lead, because then him running around is much more impactful. But if that game script is them up, then it kind of makes sense.
Not very good against the run. We all hope Brian Brzee is getting better this, in his second year. But this is a different challenge. Carolina was no good. And then last week, Dallas doesn't really have a running back. Tony Pollard's gone in free agency. Ezekiel Elliott's 100 years old. And they got so far behind, they had to throw it. What does it look like now when you start 0-0 and if Philly is able to run the ball?
If we start off, like, let's say we kick off and Philly gets the ball and Philly's just running at will, that'll be a problem for sure. But if that's not the case, if Philly can't just run it, if they're not just ripping off 6 yards of carry, and we're containing that, then we'll be fine. Because again, I don't think they're going to be able to stop us. And then when you get ahead, like, it's very difficult to just rely on the running game for the other team. So
that's where I think this does level the playing field a bit in this game, and I think that makes us much more competitive. So I think the Saints' offense is going to be fine. I really am concerned defensively with their ability to stop this particular rushing offense. We were both wrong last week. You picked Dallas 27-3.
Jesus, wow! Talk about a yo-yo. We go from 47 points to 3 points. But this is why I gave out Jalen Hurts over 9.5 carries on the betting preview a couple days ago. It's because, like, you got to follow these game scripts. You got to look at what teams are going to want to do. If Philly does want to run the ball like this, then it makes sense that Jalen Hurts is probably getting a ton of carries, which is why we gave out 9.5. Similarly to why we gave out Alvin Kamara over 63.5 rushing yards, because if the Saints, they want to run the football, Philly can't stop the run, it all makes sense, right? So anytime you bet player props like that, you always want to look at, like, the game script and correlation to how you think it's going to go. Now, I could be wrong, but
I picked Dallas 31-21. I thought the Saints offense would come back to earth a little bit. And I even said, granted, I think I'm undervaluing the Saints defense too much, and clearly I was. I got it wrong. What do you think? Saints Eagles in the Dome Sunday.
It's going to be 15-6.
15-6.
15-6 Philadelphia.
Brother, did you just did you check out for the last 9 minutes and 28 seconds? I mean, was my man listening to the Calm app in the headset and just meditating and completely drifting away somewhere else? Did you not listen to the entire breakdown from Matthias? I feel bad for Matt. Matt was sitting here telling the world how New Orleans will be able to get whatever they want offensively. Offensively, and this hombre said, "Oh, they'll just kick a couple field goals." Like, he doesn't even expect the Saints to get in the end zone. The Saints have hung 40 back to back, and now they play a really bad defense, comparable or comparable, as some of my friends would say, to Carolina more than Dallas. And all of a sudden, this Philadelphia defense on short rest is going to hold the Saints. It's going to hold the Saints at home on the track. It's going to hold the Saints to 2 field goals. I mean, you might as well have just be throwing darts. I cannot believe this. You might as well just be throwing darts. You might as well just on a random number generator for both scores. 15-6. It's more likely that the final score will be 150-604 than it is 15-6. I mean, not even to mention the numbers themselves. So we're looking at 5 field goals for Philly, quick maths, and we're gonna have 7 field goals, no touchdowns in the game. There's not gonna be a single touchdown. I mean, maybe this is a gimmick. Maybe this is just kind of what happens here. Like, they just pick field goal festivals, but it is wild, man. Wild.
15-6 Philly.
Yep.
Do you want to give me a real score?
That's the real score.
15-6.
50. I mean,
so the Saints, which have scored in every possession in 2 games, are going to be
will not score on a single possession, and Philly will also not score and just kick field goals. It'll be 7 field goals.
limited. Is it 2 field goals, or are they going to get a touchdown and miss a PAT?
No, they're not going to score.
You said 15-6.
3 safeties.
3 safeties.
Okay, it's a gimmick. Okay. All right. It's obviously a safety or a gimmick.
Got it.
3 safeties. I don't know if that's a record, but that's
that would have to be a record. I don't know if we can look at that.
15-6, 3 safeties. That's what I'm thinking.
I
I just got a hunch. I got a feeling.
Okay.
I'm going with it.
I am going to say that the Saints on their home field with a big crowd get this done, but I think there's going to be a lot of offense in this game. The total, I think, is 49 right now. I don't know if that's changed.
Again, I said 31-20. Love it.
Total on this game. You see it? I think it was 49. It's okay. I'm like, 49.5 is the total. I think it's over.
Really?
I think I'll pick New Orleans 31-30. I think there's a lot. Like, they just can't. They have not shown that they can stop Jalen Hurts. And now you have Saquon Barkley, who's a better running back than Miles Sanders when he's right. I know there's no Jason Kelce, which changes the dynamic on the offensive line. I just think this is a game where we are going to see a lot of offense. But the Saints at home, Eagles traveling on a short week. I'm going to give a slight edge to New Orleans here. I think the Eagles are still a really good team, but they're in a little bit of a desperate spot. The Saints flying high, great home crowd. Close game, but I think the Saints are going to win it. Give me the Saints 31-30 at home. Hey, thanks.
31-30 be one hell of a game. Like I said, I'll be there in a couple hours here. I hope it is 31-30. It'll be a lot of fun to watch. If it's 31-30, Jalen Hurts will have like 18 carries. I'll go ahead and tell you that. If the offenses are flying like that, Jalen Hurts is going to have so many carries. It honestly, if it played out like that, now granted, if you're taking the Saints -3 or whatever, you don't want to hear this, but that is, I wouldn't mind the Saints winning a game like that. Like, at this point, I want to see them kind of in a dogfight. I want to see them with the back against the wall. I would rather them win 31-30 than 31-0, because I think, as you start playing better teams and as you become a legitimate contender, you do need to win some of these close games. You do need to be challenged. You do need to have your back against the wall a little bit. So I hope it's 31-30. That'd be a ton of fun to watch. I would absolutely love everything to do with that. Again, you know, the 15-6 thing, I think it's being said in jest. I think it's a joke. I don't think anyone should take that seriously. Like, I know a lot of, I mean, I hope, you know, but I will say, like, just from a media side of thing, I think it's interesting in today's media landscape, or even just like in football or sports, I guess, is like so much is riding on these games for fans. I mean, with fantasy, with sports betting, with Survivor contest, with everything. I mean, everyone has something on these games, even if it's not monetarily. Just like these games have become so important, and it always kind of, and maybe I'm looking at it different, because I take the analysis and I take what we do on this channel very seriously. You know, I want to present to y'all the best breakdown. I want to prepare everyone watching for the game, or I want to recap the game. You know, I want everyone to know what happened and what's going to happen. I take that seriously, and kind of like I feel like the appetite as a consumer of like sports media, I feel like the appetite for like the 90s shock jock, the 90s kind of radio host kind of thing is waning. I don't know. I mean, I'd be shocked if a majority of listeners on ESPN 104.5 and, you know, whatever the station is of this, if a majority of the listeners heard 15-6, 3 safeties, and were like, LOL, yeah, that's good stuff. Like, they want to know, like, what's actually going to happen in the game. What do you think is going to happen in the game? And again, I mean, it's not every show is different. I just, this is more of like just an overarching conversation about sports media. I think the same thing with ESPN. I mean, I've said it a million times, but when Paul Feinbaum and Mel Kiper and whoever come out there and they just say things, and there's no basis to back them up or whatever, like, people, like, I know Chris the Bear Felica on Fox Sports. He used to be on ESPN, but on Fox, he does a really good job. And when he's breaking down games, he's telling you why he's picking certain teams and why he likes certain teams, and he goes against the grain sometimes, and he's not just throwing a dart. And I think a lot of analysts, Stephen A. Smith, you know, Colin Cowherd, a lot of them can get in that world where they're just throwing darts. And there's way too many avenues now to get the information. There's way too many avenues now to get like really hard-hitting information and really detailed analysis. And when you compare that to people just guessing, you know, just pulling numbers out of a hat, you know, I mean, I don't know. Different strokes for different folks, but I would not, again, I think he's kidding. I think Theriot is LOLing. I would not be too concerned about the 15-6. But 31-20 is what I'm thinking, ladies and gentlemen. Who dat, couple hours away. Get your Bloody Marys going. Get your Crown and sodas ready. And your Dome Dogs prepared. No condiments. Remember, we sacrifice condiments for the team. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.